Scott Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5-Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
Good morning, Rush Nation, and welcome to another Good Morning Fantasy Football. And I'm here this time to talk about something a little different. I've done a lot of projection stuff, tournament stuff. I'll do some more strategy stuff. I've done some. But one of the things I kind of been picking up from people, especially this summer, I tend to find, is there's a lot more. I don't really know how to put it. It just seems to be that you've got people that really enjoy fantasy football and are degenerates like myself and really get into it. There seems to be a lot more negativity around fantasy football than perhaps there has been in recent years. And I seem to think the COVID years brought a lot of fans into fantasy football. They brought a lot of people into playing the game for the first time and trying it and doing lots of drafts and getting into the community. And I feel like the community, especially in the UK, really exploded in 2020, 2021. And I think in the US, it did as well. And I got the feeling it was a really positive community and there was lots of really good things going on and drafts. Everyone was just really happy. Everyone was quite laid back, I guess because they had nothing else to kind of do. And then we fast forward to now. In this summer, there seems to be a lot more angst in drafts. There seems to be a bit more toxicity in drafts. I've got a guy in a draft now who's deliberately just holding up the draft, and he's just doing it to antagonize the draft for no reason at all. Just clearly that's his game. And I don't really get it. Like, I don't really understand. And I'm not talking about the people who want to use the whole clock up because they think news is going to break in July when it's not. It's the start of training camp. It's not preseason. But I'm not even talking about those. I mean, that's a strategy. That's what people want to do. People do what they want. I'll give you an example. In my Warrior Bowl draft, he moaned about the speed of the draft, and then he didn't pick for hours after being on the clock. He acknowledged that he was on the clock. He was sending messages in the chat, but wasn't picking. And then he then got to a point where he picked when he was on the clock another time, but he only picked once. He's on the turn, and then waited 7 hours to pick the second pick on the turn, and sent sort of funny emojis and stuff like that. And I just think, I don't really get it. Like, all that does really is it kind of takes the fun out of the drafts. It takes the fun out of it for those that aren't really involved in it. And to be honest, those type of people I just block on Sleeper so I don't see the messages. And I'm not talking about slow drafts in general. I think like slow drafts are good. I don't mind slow drafts. I don't even mind slow drafts that are slower than the average slow draft. I don't have a problem with them. I think, they're slow for a reason. People work. People have jobs, kids, lives. Some people have jobs that they can't take their phones in and things like that. And I have no problem with any of that. Like, I think it's a slow draft for a reason. It's an 8-hour clock. I just think when deliberately being antagonistic, I don't understand it. I guess it's not in my nature and I don't really understand it. I guess for some people, it'd be seen as like a draft strategy or draft tactic to annoy people and get them disengaged and they'll make worse picks. But fantasy football is just supposed to be fun, right? Like, that's kind of the whole point of why we do it. And so to make it less fun for others, that makes it more fun for you. I'm just not really of that nature or inclination that makes any logical sense to me. Now, I just seem to feel there's a lot more like people get really angry when they're tagged. People get angry when the other people aren't tagging. It just seems to be a bit of a cultural thing at the moment where there's a huge debate around tagging versus not tagging. Why does there need to be a debate? People want to tag as long as it's once and it's at the time. And people who don't want to tag because they feel that the app does its notification and people will pick when they want to pick and check on it. Like, I don't tend to tag. I don't tend to tag for any other reason that I feel like the app will do that, or that the person will check in on the draft when they're ready. I will sometimes tag if their time is running out and just like, oh, they might not have seen it. And they haven't been tagged, or they might have been tagged once, or sometimes as a friendly reminder, I'll send a tag, but not often. I just feel like it just seems to be this summer, there seems to be more and more angst and less fun. I've done drafts with people where I put a bit of a bio about who I am and I like to have a chat. And then it's just tumbleweed in the chat. And you just think, oh, okay. It's a slow draft from all over the world. No one wants to chat. I mean, fine, like each to their own. But for me, the fun part of, especially these big charity tournaments, right, where your chances of winning are less than 0.5%. Like, the greatest probability is you're going to lose. So why not just have fun? Like, why not just hop in the chat, have a chat? My SFB draft this year, once again, as it always is, was brilliant fun. I had great people. Someone got engaged during my SFB chat, and it was just a good laugh. It was a good bunch of people. And the funny thing is, when the draft is engaged and people are chatting and getting to know each other, the draft goes quicker. So if your biggest complaint is that the draft is going slowly, we'll try and engage in the chat, try and get chat going, and maybe that might engage people to come back and get involved, and then it becomes like a point of discussion. The best drafts I've had have just been the chat. Have been absolutely brilliant. I think back to my SFB 10 chat with Justin Varnes and Bo McBig Time and Gary Hanau and several Pat Tamez was in there. I think there were a few others. Best draft I've had. It was phenomenal. So good. And it was just because we just had a laugh. And like, it doesn't matter where in the world you are. It doesn't matter about time zones or anything like that. Like, it's just about having a bit of fun. Like, and I think there are ways that you can make fantasy drafts fun and fantasy football fun. And I think they're two different things. Because I think to make fantasy fun, and you're in like your leagues of record, they tend to be fun. You know everyone. I think you can do some really cool things with some prizes or forfeits or all these other sort of things that can really sort of engage and make it fun. We did an episode a long time ago we've done a couple of episodes with my buddy Joel, who came on, and he talked about the league he's in. He does lots of great things for that. And then we had Dr. Kevin Murray in January, I think. And he came on. He did a phenomenal job talking about how he makes his leagues really engaging and fun, and gave lots of really good tips. So I recommend going back and doing that for like your home leagues. I think even just for drafts now, that if you're in these big charity drafts and you don't really know anyone, I like icebreakers. I like doing 2 lies, 1 truth, or 2 truths, 1 lie, whichever variation of that you want to do. I like the idea of doing a forfeit for whoever's 12. Maybe whoever finishes last chucks an extra $20 to charity if it's a charity league, or trying to do something fun where there's a forfeit for the donation to charity, or just something, or don't even have to force a donation on someone, but maybe you come up with something wild and wacky, like if someone times out, they chuck in for charity. All those sorts of things. I think there's fun things you can do. You can play games in the middle. I said I already mentioned 2 truths, 1 lie, 2 lies, 1 truth, or you can come up with sort of other games where you get to know each other and have a bit of a laugh. I've been in the draft where we've done almost like a Wheel of Fortune, like fill in the blank type of thing. I think there's ways that you can really engage, and I get it. People have lives and are busy, and not everyone will want to do that, and that's absolutely fine. I like to think if I'm hosting a draft, I think like to the eliminators, I always try and make it a bit engaging and a bit fun during the draft. I just think like that's the part that you will get more engagement, and it tends to work a little bit better. I think there's loads of things that you can really do to make fantasy drafts fun. I think a good bit of banter. I'm in the FF7s right now with Iggy, and we've got a load of guys who are Warrior Bar 1, and we all take the Michael out of each other, and that's good fun. Like we some of us know each other quite well, and we were in the original Warrior Bowl final together, quite a few of us. So there's a lot of banter in there, but people who perhaps weren't part of that have now joined in, and I think Back to Lanks is part of that now, and it's a cracking way. And again, it's a lot of fun. We've got memes going, we've got all sorts of things that just go in there. And I think, if you don't know everyone, obviously you've got to find the line and find where it's acceptable, but you can still do some really fun things. And if you do know people in there, then try and include others into it. Don't make it too many like clicky jokes as well, because that can also get quite infuriating. I think in the SFB chat there were about 4 or 5 of us that knew each other, and there were some that had never been in before. I think we did a good job, especially Zach, FF Chili per Batman, who did a great job in just sort of coordinating, bringing everyone together and making it a really fun, engaging draft. And I think that's kind of the key to it, is just having a laugh and a crack and some good chat in there. I think that's ultimately really important. I do think live drafts are the most fun. I think if you've never been in a live draft, and you're in the UK, I'd love to see if there's a way that we can make that happen in the future. If you are, if it's in your home league, try and do that draft live. If you know everyone, it's possible. Try and find a weekend and get together and have fun and have some beers and draft in person. I definitely think it's a great way to do a fantasy draft. It's one of my favorite ways to do it. And I think, punishments and rewards, I think, are always great. And find ways to incorporate that. Maybe you put a fining system in for your draft. It's never a bad way of doing it. I just think fantasy football is supposed to be fun. I think that everyone had a lot of fun during lockdown, I think, because they probably had nowhere else to be. And now that the real world is almost trying to catch up a little bit now, we're this post-COVID world and we're back to normal, and people's responsibilities have kind of got on top of them a little bit. I think people feel like they want to do what they were doing a couple of years ago, but perhaps don't have the time or the capacity to do that. And then they overstretch. And there's definitely people that are in far too many leagues because they signed up in so many in lockdown, and then they feel like it's hard to let go of some. And I totally get that. And like, I'm not unsympathetic to any of that. And I think you've got to find your balance on what is a reasonable workload to be in and what is, and what's the most fun for you. And if you find certain leagues, charity leagues, not fun, then don't do them, and inversely, if you do commit to a league, commit to it, try and commit to it full, as much as possible, and really sort of try and carve some time. And even if it's one evening or an hour or 2 hours where you just get involved in the chat. And I get it, some people work unsociable hours and everyone's asleep. You get some people who are just very shy and very quiet, and it's really difficult for them to open up. But I totally understand that. And I think if you are one of those people and you're watching this and you think, okay, you're talking a lot about chatting and that makes you feel uncomfortable, I 100% get that. And look, I think anxiety and social anxiety is something that probably isn't understood or talked about as much as it should be. What I will say from my personal experience is I think that 99% of people in fantasy drafts and fantasy community are absolutely amazing, wonderful people, and I've made some lifelong friends because of this community, and that's what fills my heart, and that's what makes fantasy football fun for me. Yes, the winning's fun, of course it is, but actually just making friends and chatting and making connections all over the world is what's important. And I get it, sometimes it's really hard to go out on a limb and really hard to put yourself out there, but see if you can try, and if you can't, there's no pressure. But if you can, I promise you, I think the reward will be worthwhile. It's definitely people I know who are socially anxious, who perhaps won't ever go to a live draft because they suffer that anxiety and they're worried that they might embarrass themselves or they don't feel comfortable meeting strangers. And I 100% get that. The good thing about being online is it's online. It's we're not doing video calls, although that's another great way if you want to engage people. I always try and do for some of the bigger drafts a video call for the first hour and get on and meet people. We've done that. Did that in Scottish Bowl 11, Scottish Bowl 12. Tried to do it this year. Not as many people were busy or free at that time to do it. But I think, if you can try and do those sorts of things, it's ways to get going. But also appreciate that might, make people's social anxiety a little bit peaked as well. And if that's the case, Well, I'd just say is just try. I mean, if you have the confidence to say to reach out to someone like me and talk to someone like me, but perhaps don't feel like you can do that in a group setting, either give it a try, or if you're in the draft with me and you DM me saying I'm just not sure, then we'll try and find a way to make it work. But if you can, I think that's what makes fantasy football fun, is the friendships and the camaraderie that you build through all of this. And I think, for me this season, it's all about making fantasy football fun. And yes, the winning is a fun part, and I'm going to put a lot of content together over the course of the next 6 months to help you win. 100% we will do that. But I also think we need to get back to the common decency of just having fun with people, respecting people, and trying to just enjoy drafts a little bit more. And there's a lot of moaning in drafts when drafts are slow. There's a lot of, and as a commissioner of a draft, it's very difficult to hear that, and people moaning about your draft that you've organized, that you've spent tens of hundreds of hours putting together and doing. To have people complain because you've got a few people from all over the world. I've got some divisions that have multiple time zones, from Australia to America to the UK and Europe and Asia, and it's just, that's the way it is. The way that those sessions go. But I think respecting each other, treating people with respect, having a bit of fun, and just in the delay, try and make the most of it from those that are awake, and try and come up with some really fun things that you can do in a draft to engage. Introduce yourself. I always try and do it with a bit of an anecdote, and I try and have a bit of a laugh and a joke at myself for it. And I've been in some drafts, and about 8, 10, 12 people have all done a bit of an intro, and it's been great. You break that ice, and then you just end up saying, "Oh, do you know so and so?" And then you end up connecting, and you find pathways together which you all enjoy. I've been in some drafts I've done that, and absolutely no one's replied. You just think, "Oh, okay, it's going to be one of those drafts," and we all know that those sort of drafts exist, and they're the ones that are the most difficult. But I also say try and be the solution and not the problem. I have people that moan at me like, "Oh, my draft just isn't all that engaging." What did you try and do to engage it? Did you try and introduce something, or introduce yourself, or try and make it fun, or start an engaging chat, or whatever it might be? I think people always look to other people to maybe do that, and they think, okay, it's not always someone else's job. You can be part of the solution and not the problem. I just think if we can get rid of some of the negativity, some of the antagonistic behavior, some of the behavior to deliberately try and wind people up, and some of the ultra going in on people who take up a lot of clock. There are people that genuinely take up a lot of clock because they work jobs that can't access their phones, or they're asleep, or they're in a different time zone. And so just picking on those people and making them feel really small is just a really crappy thing to do. And it's just not what this community is about. It's not what it was about a couple of years ago. It's not what it's about when I joined. It shouldn't be what it's about now. And there are definitely people that will just jump on people for being slow. And it's just, there's banter, but think about the other side, and think about the fact that that person probably is not going to be in any hurry to pick if all that happens is they just get jumped on every time they're on the clock. So I think it feels like a bit of a rant. It's not. I just think about, let's make fantasy football get fun again. And it's about the people. It's the people that make it fun. The challenge of winning the leagues are more interesting than ever before. There's so many different types of leagues with so many different types of aspects. And you know what? If you're struggling to find a really good, fun, engaging league, don't worry. I've got those too. I have fantasy football listener leagues, 4 or 5 yard rush. So you can jump into those. The link is in the chat. Jump into one of those. I promise you they'll be fun, they'll be engaging, you'll meet some great people, and what allows our community to grow. We're always looking for new people in the community, not so to create content, but just to play and have fun and have a good experience. I think that is ultimately where we need to get to and get back, because this community sort of 3-4 years ago saw so many people through lockdown, through lots of drafts and lots of fun, engaging ways that kept people's mental health right, and welcomed a lot of people in to do a lot of drafts, and people had a lot of fun. And I kind of feel we've lost that. I really feel genuinely from the bottom of my heart we've lost that. And there is definitely more sort of nepotism and negativity in this space than ever before. So let's try and eradicate that. Let's all work on it together. Let's make fantasy football fun again. Let's all have a laugh together, and let's enjoy fantasy football for what it is: a great opportunity to meet people, a great opportunity to win money and prizes, but more importantly, just to have fun. It's a hobby for 99.9% of people. So that's going to do it for today. Enjoy your Tuesday. I look forward to being back with you tomorrow. and having a great show lined up for you. Maybe do some FFCC wrap ups and bits and pieces on there. So until then, Rush Nation, don't forget, as always, keep rushing.